All right, what's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast real estate tip, where every single week I come to delivering different tips, tactics, and strategies to help you get shit done inside your real estate business and help you ensure that you are dominating your overall real estate goals. All right, so today I'm here to talk to you about the real estate market crash that is coming and how to best prepare, how to best position yourself and best prepare to ensure not only that you survive this, but I want to make sure that you are thriving during these times. I want to make sure that you will continue to grow, scale, and kick in ass regardless of what the market is doing. And look, one thing that's really important that I want you to understand is the market does not dictate your overall success. You and you alone dictate and determine your overall success within your real estate career. However, if you want to have a long-lasting, successful business that continues to grow, scale, and thrive, you have to have the ability to read the different markets, and not just the ability to read the different markets, but making sure then that you are adjusting, pivoting, and adapting accordingly. Look, one of the big reasons as to why so many realtors, team leaders, and broker owners' businesses have contracted and are down now here in 2024 is because they're still doing the same shit that they did in 2019, 2020, 2021. Even though the market and the economy has shifted greatly, they haven't made the necessary changes and shifts that they need to pivot and adapt to this new climate that we are in. All right, so on today's podcast, I'm going to do a deep dive in this. We're going to do a breakdown. I'm going to go through some different reasons as to why I'm making this prediction of the real estate market crash. I'm going to share my screen here in a moment, go through some different charts, go through some different graphs so you can see the things that I'm seeing, because I'm not just pulling these predictions out of my ass. I pay attention to this stuff. I read this. This is one of the reasons why my businesses continue to grow and scale year after year for almost 20 years now. I've been involved in the two biggest booms in real estate recorded history. I've also been involved in the largest, biggest real estate market crash in recorded history. My businesses continue to grow, scale, and thrive regardless of the economy, regardless of the overall marketplace. And it's because I pay attention to these things. And one of the best ways that I have found to go out there and hedge your business and ensure that you continue to grow, scale, and thrive regardless of the marketplace is to hope for the best and plan for the worst. So when I talk about a real estate market crash, I don't know the severity of this. I don't know if this is going to be as bad as 2000, the great financial crisis during 2008 through 2012. It could be as bad. Maybe it's not as bad. Maybe it's as bad. Could be worse. Right? But here's what I'm prepping and planning for. I am prepping and planning for the worst housing market crash in United States recorded history. Now, am I saying that that's what's going to take place? No. But I'm prepping for it. Why? Because look, if I'm prepared for worst case scenario and worst case scenario happens, well, then boom, if I prepared accordingly and correctly, well, then I'm good to go. And then if it doesn't happen, I'm good to go. So again, this is just a way to go out there and hedge your business to ensure that you are growing and scaling and thriving regardless. However, I do believe that a crash is coming. I don't have necessarily a timeline on that. There's too much manipulation in the system, financial system, the fiscal system, fiscal policy, monetary policy. It's all colluded now. Our whole monetary policy is now changed. So there's so much manipulation, so much money printing, stimulus, monetization of debt, QE, infinity, all this bullshit going on where they're able to kick the can down the road longer and longer and longer. But eventually we're going to face the music. And I think that we might be closer than a lot of others think. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be within 6 months. Real estate crashes are slow. I mean, if you study, historic real estate crashes, it's not like the stock market where things just crash instantaneously. They can be kind of slow burns, man, right? It can be a crash over time, from peak to trough, through that. But I don't know if it's going to hit within the next 12 months, 2 years, 3 years. I believe that the probability is extremely high that eventually this is going to happen. Again, I'm going to show you all that data as to why I believe that here today. I'm going to break this down. But then most importantly, I'm going to walk you through what to do to prepare for this to ensure that you kick ass and thrive regardless. All right, so real quick, before we jump in, look, if you are a real estate agent, team leader, or brokerage owner, and your real estate business is not exactly where you want it to be, maybe it's declining, maybe it's stagnant, maybe it's growing, just not growing at the pace that you want it to grow at. It's like you got big dreams, goals, and visions, but you just do not know exactly what you must do to get from where you're at to where you want to go. If that is you, I invite you to schedule a 100% free, 100% zero pressure Zoom coaching call with me personally. We're going to spend an hour long together. Everything, it's free, zero pressure. We're going to do a deep dive in your business, where your business is at, what your 12-month goals are, what your long-term goals, dreams, and visions are for your business, what you're currently doing, what your obstacles are. Then from there, I'm going to map out exactly what I recommend that you do to get from where you're at to where you want to go in the quickest, most effective, efficient, profitable manner possible. I'm going to remove all that guesswork, all that confusion, make sure you know exactly, again, what you must do to get from where you're at to where you want to go. So if you want to sit down with me on a 1 hour long Zoom call, one of the top realtors and team leaders on the planet, you got everything to gain, nothing to lose. If you want to do this and take advantage of this, go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. All right, so first let me go through, okay, why am I making these predictions? Then I'm going to go just cover again. I want to cover a few things with you. Then we'll jump into the charts and graphs. Then I'm going to go through again what I believe to be most important, which is what actions do we actually take? Because I can come here and, make claims about what the market's going to do, but if we don't know what the fuck to do about it, that doesn't do us any good. But I do believe, like, hey, look, we got to be cognizant of what's going on. And the first thing is, like, look, just understanding, and you can call me tinfoil hat, you can say whatever, but here's just what I've learned in my short 42 years of life, is what is purported to us on the news is absolute and utter bullshit. So I do not recommend to watch the news. I recommend to go to first sources, which I'm going to walk you through here today. So I'm not sitting there listening to, what Fox News is telling me or CNN's telling me or whatever. Like, I know those are, mouthpieces for the government. They're not going to actually tell me what is actually going on. The vast majority, it's just freaking propaganda, inaccurate bullshit. So I'm going to go actually pay attention to what is going on with the consumer, right? Because what drives real estate prices? Right. I mean, if we start looking at this, yeah, you can go out there and argue supply and demand, but it's like, look, how healthy and in good a shape is the consumer? Who owns these homes? Who's buying these homes? Who's selling these homes? Oh, Josh, all these institutions. Okay, all these institutions own about 1 million single family attached residences, throughout the United States. And there's 140 million, so it's what is going on with the average consumer, which is going to be the biggest lead indicator to what's going to happen with the overall real estate market. So what is going on right now with the overall market? So we'll go high level and then we'll get into the consumer and again, some charts and graphs. Okay, so if we look at the market today and what's going on right now, okay, number one, we got the most unaffordable time to be alive as a U.S. citizen, and U.S. recorded history. Never has it been more expensive to be alive just as a citizen and operating. So obviously that puts a lot of pressure. And you guys all know it. You see it, you feel it. Every time you go out to dinner, every time you go to the grocery store, every time you got to pay utility bills, everything is going up and up and up. And again, the news, the Federal Reserve, they can come and report to us that, CPI is getting under control. We're getting close to our 2% target. Bullshit, right? And again, every move that is taking place right now, again, in my 42 short years of life, I've learned one thing. You don't listen to what people say. You watch what they do. Action, words are hollow, actions show what the truth is, right? So every action that is being taken is highly inflationary. So my belief is, and not just is my belief, I mean, I've got this backed by, what I'm seeing out there, is that we're going to be in this inflationary time for a long time to come. Now, there's going to be certain sectors where we see deflation, sure. And hopefully, hopefully I'll say that. Hopefully housing is one of those. Right now, you can be like, well, Josh, what do you mean? You want the housing market to crash? Hell yes, I do. Right now, I'm also very careful and cognizant of confirmation bias. So when I'm going through this data with you, and look, we can all fall subject to that, but I do my best to remove my emotions from this so I can prepare accordingly, but the reason why I say, I hope it does is, look, prices gotten out of control. I want to have the American dream here for my kids. And, I don't like seeing all that's going on right now with inflation and all asset classes and all things. All that means is that our dollar is becoming worth less and less and less. Life today is over twice the cost of what it was, 4 short years ago, prior to kind of that post-COVID boom with all the, stimulus and everything that response created. We had nothing to do with COVID. It was the response to COVID that it created. But with this ongoing inflation, why is inflation going to continue to take place? Okay, when we start looking at, all the monetization of debt, right? So all like if you look at okay, the government is running what close to a $3 trillion or greater, beyond a $3 trillion deficit a year. There's not enough tax dollars to go out there and cover everything that they're doing. So if you look at everything domestically, everything globally, massively inflationary. Like when you look at okay, the migrant, immigration kind of crisis taking place here. We got. I mean, let's just face facts. We got an open border right now. You got tens of thousands of people crossing that border each and every single day. I don't know how many millions that equates to on an annual basis. There's different numbers based on different sources that you look at. But these are all people that are getting access to social programs, getting access to food, getting access to education. It's like, okay, like how are we going to fund those? How are we going to pay for those? Right. Like that's, things that we got to go out there. We don't have the money. We're broke. Government's broke. So what do? They go out there and monetize their debt. I mean, they print money to cover their debt. That's when we're running a $3 trillion deficit on an annual basis, that means they're having to print more and more money just to go out there and handle their debt. And there's more complicated, there's more nuances. Now I'm just using very simplistic terms here, with what's going on. But if we look at, okay, that's just one example. But then from there, okay, with all the social programs, like they're not getting cut, they're just continuing to be added. Got UBI that continues to be added in a lot of different states. And just we're in this, kind of bailout nation right now, right? When it comes up, but then everything globally that's taking place, funding all these wars, all of this stuff. Again, all of this, and I'm not sitting here saying it's good, bad, whatever. This is not a political podcast. This is here about talking about how to get shit done in a real estate business. So I'm not here to take a stance on any of this bullshit and whatever. I'm just here to sit there and say every move that is being made is not deflationary or fighting inflation. It's highly inflationary. So what does that mean? That means that life is going to continue to get more and more expensive each and every single year. And people today are not, it's not a thing of, oh man, people today are barely able to hang on. No, they're not able to hang on. I'm going to show you guys a chart today that'll blow your fucking mind. At least it's blown my mind, of looking at consumer debt versus consumer savings rate. Never a time, at least where I can find and record, since these numbers have been recorded, have we seen the gap in expanding at this magnitude between the average consumer amount of debt that they're continuing to go into and this savings evaporation. So people can't afford life. The only reason that they're able to get by is just because they're stacking on more and more debt, more and more debt. We got debt on the highest levels that we've seen ever, on magnitudes of a scale of size that we've ever seen. And not just consumer debt, but also corporate debt, also, government debts. The debt problem that we're experiencing is out of freaking control. So we got ongoing inflation that is not going to slow down. I mean, that shit. It's like, dude, like with everything taking place, like this could be a decade of life going up. Just think of how expensive life has got year after year after year over the last few years. Imagine 10 years of this. People are already breaking. Okay, how does that break others? Okay, you got 1 out of 6 households right now that can't even afford utility payments. You got 25,000 daily auto repossessions taking place because people can't afford their auto loans. These are just stats for here in the U.S. So I mean, these are levels, again, a scale that we've never seen before. You got a record amount of retirees that are leaving retirement and having to jump back into the workforce. We got a record number of people now working multiple jobs. One of the reasons why the job numbers are kind of skewed, kind of accurate, but kind of skewed at the same time. Because they're counting like when we get, oh, the job market's so good, we got all X number of jobs added. Okay, well, we also are seeing a very, very high level of white collar workers getting laid off. Those are really the types of, I mean, we're kind of in this white collar recession right now. If you want to look at it that way. So let's just say, okay, I'm working this white collar job where I'm making 150, 200 G's a year. I get laid off from my job. Now I got to go to replace that job. Maybe I get 1 full-time job, 2 part-time jobs, doesn't even fully replace that income. So my purchasing power as a family has came down. So we're still struggling. But now I had to go I'm one person that had one job. That one job went away. Now I got 3 jobs. That gets reported as a 2 net job gain on the payroll reports. So we have a record number of people having to work 2 and 3 jobs just to scrape by because of all this crazy ass inflation. Does that sound like a healthy economy to you? No, right? Like that to me is the opposite of unhealthy, right? All right. So then from there, let me jump into, I want to show you guys and walk you through some of these charts and graphs that I'm seeing. So this first, let me pull up my screen, share my screen, boom, entire screen. Okay, because I have a bunch of charts. So I just want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen with you. Okay, so this first chart here, this is just, this just graphs out. This isn't a chart about what's going on actively today. I'm going to switch to those, but this is just the chart about the stages of a bubble, right? So when we look at this, it's just historic bubbles and the different stages that they go through. So, and this can apply to stock market, real estate market, but right now I want you to think about this obviously with the real estate market because that's what we're here talking about. So let's just say, okay, market crashes, right? Because you just have, market crashes, recessions, they're just the cycles of business, right? Just like you have the seasons, you got different business cycles, you got ups, downs, and it's just, it just happens. Not everything grows up in a standard linear line, right? Like you got your ups, downs, your peaks, valleys, with this different stuff. So if you look at the far left of this chart, right? So let's just assume and say, okay, the last crash happened, then we have, okay, we, have a crash, then there's a correction, and then there's kind of a stagnation stage, where things are just kind of staying status quo for a while. And then boom, things slowly start to take off. So that's the first part of this, if you're looking at this here at the bottom here, the takeoff phase. And again, I'm trying to do my best for you that, or guys are listening to this, because I know most of you listening to this podcast aren't watching on YouTube. But you can always go reference the YouTube video if you want to go see these charts. So we got this takeoff phase where this is just kind of that slower rise, to things improving and starting to, slowly take off. Then, okay, it starts to take off. And then there'll be this, what's called the first sell-off correction, what also is known in the financial world as a bear trap. Yeah, right. But then, okay, then things, so you start to see this first little sell-off and then boom, things quickly correct. And then now we start to take off again, but that takeoff accelerates. Then we go through, okay, where that takeoff is starting to get media attention. Oh, things are on fire. Things are hot, right? You get enthusiasm. Consumer confidence is through the roof. Everybody's getting excited about it. Then boom, greed hits into place. So people start getting greedy. And then, okay, then above greed, as this really starts to skyrocket. So now it starts to look like this rocket ship taking off here on this graph, right? Then we hit the delusion phase. So if we look at in real estate, what was that delusion phase? Okay, 2020, 2021, maybe even a little bit early 2022 for some of your markets. What was taking place during this delusion phase? This is when you have Zillow going in there. Like when Zillow's iBuyer, portion of their business, shut down. I saw so many in the real estate community that were like, oh yeah, and they're blaming on Zestimates being inaccurate. I'm like, dude, it had nothing to do with the Zestimate value. Zillow was going in there paying, at least in my market, 100 G's cash above Zestimate value, right? So we started just seeing crazy things taking place. People doing stupid shit, paying, record amounts. It's like they pay, 100, 200 grand above appraised value. And then boom, it hit this new paradigm that we'd never seen before. So with that, at least haven't seen before in that cycle. So at least in my 20-year career, even during the 2005 boom, I did not see where it did not become industry norm, where it was, okay, like got to the point where in what, 2020, 2021, every buyer consult, like we're prepping them. Hey, well, yeah, here's what the house is going to be worth. Here's what the appraisal is going to come in at. But you got to be ready to pay $100,000 or whatever, was based on what they're buying, above appraised value. You're going to have to, sign an appraisal gap where you're willing to pay the difference. And, that just became a new norm. To go out there and, have to waive inspections, waive appraisal contingencies, be willing to pay the appraisal gap. And that became normal place. So it was a new paradigm, at least in my career, that I'd never seen that become common normal place. And then all of a sudden, boom, that was the norm. That was the expected. So we hit this new paradigm. So that's, brings us to, let's just say, 2022, like, or like end of 2021, early 2022. Then all of a sudden, boom, we have this first immediate correction. So all of a sudden, this quick fall off where things adjust really fast. And then people, so that might be let's just say a 5%, maybe a 10% correction, which we saw this 100% in Phoenix in my market, right? So when we look at that, then boom, we got this quick, immediate kind of crash, quick, immediate correction, but then all of a sudden, then things start to pick back up again, right? And this is what's called the bull trap right here, but things start to pick up again where it's like, oh, things are normalizing, things are getting better again. Oh, the market corrected, but things are getting better. And again, with real estate being a slow process, this right here can take I don't know, 5 years, or 10 years, so let's just, call this like 2015 to where we're at right now. So then, okay, then you get this, where it looks like it's a return to normal phase. It looks like, oh yeah, things are corrected, things are good. And the reason why that's called that, that trap, is then boom, that is then where things fall off of a cliff. Right. And then you can see it just straight drops like it's fallen off of a cliff, hits rock bottom and then it returns to the mean line. Yeah. Right. So, because everything has a way of just returning to the mean line when it once adjusted for inflation. In each market, that's going to be different. In my market, my best guesstimate is that's going to be somewhere around like 2018, 2019 prices. Right. So we've got this mean line of where things return to. So just and when you're looking at this, okay, Josh, that's cute. That's nice. Thank you for that. That's just the stage of the bubble. What does that have to do with the market right now? Okay, let me go to, so this is Core Logic, Case Shiller. So this is a Federal Reserve a chart here. So this is home prices adjusted for inflation. Now, let me go see. I'm going to, if you could see where I'm kind of highlighting right here. Now, this is, so if we compare this to the graph that we just saw, remember the stage of the bubble, right? You got the sell off, the takeoff, or the takeoff, the first sell off, then things go freaking nuts, new paradigm, the dip, then the seemingly correction. And that's just kind of the trap before that's kind of a false correction. It just, is a temporary correction, then boom, then things. So there's they call it a dead cat bounce. Yeah, right. So then when we start looking at this, let's look at, so this was, the crash of, this was the peak leading up to the great financial crisis. Here was the great kind of financial crisis in the bottom of this. So we see this build up. So if we're comparing this to that last graph there, it's like, okay, you got this, takeoff phase, and then boom, it starts to go, 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 go. Right. And then here was the peak when you're seeing this. So those of you that I'm just trying to, if you're listening to this, create this visual of, okay, this, kind of skyrocket, like think of like a bell curve. Yeah. Right. So it goes up though and hits that peak, but then instead of a bell curve, like it's got a big chip in the right top side of it. So we hit this peak, in 2006. So, that then also we had that, that drop off. Then, okay, oh, nope, things have corrected. The new norm, kind of the rise before the fall. So again, if we look at I'm going to go back and kind of back and forth between these charts. Again, we got the high rise here, this new paradigm here, then boom, right? Okay, we've got this crash, got denial, people denying that the crash is going to happen, so then we have a kind of a little mini crash for, again, a small crash. Like if you look at, the last great financial crisis, maybe that was a 5 or 10% correction. But then from there, from peak to trough, what was like a 38% correction, nationwide or whatever that, and you can go fact check those numbers and whatever. When I say fact check, I'm not saying fact check me on those numbers, because that's a guesstimate that I have. Like you can go out there and figure out what those numbers are for yourself. Even though I was in the market at that time, each market was different. My market correction was far, far beyond 38%. I'm just trying to recall nationwide numbers at that. But okay, we have this first correction. Then it's like, oh yeah, things are correcting again. And oh, this is the new norm. Everybody thinks it's the new norm. And that's the trap. That's the, the dead cat bounce. That's the return to normal before the freaking fall off. Right. So again, this is actual. So the first one was a graph of just showing what takes place, in bubbles. Now here was the last bubble that we had before the bubble that we are amongst and in right now. So we are 100% in a real estate bubble. Yeah. Right. Right now. So this was the last one. This was the buildup before the great financial crisis. Again, you had that fall off and then that small brief period of time where things are returning to normal. And then all of a sudden, boom, we got the takeoff. And again, one thing to point out here is look at this. So the bottom, now this is going to be nationwide stats. Each one of our states and our markets is slightly different. So the peak of this was 2006, March of 2006. Then the bottom here was in February of 2012. So we're talking a 6-year period. This is where people, I'll get people like, well, Josh, you keep saying this shit, but I haven't seen it yet. Where's it coming? What? I'm like, dude, it isn't the fucking stock market. This shit it happens slow. Real estate it's like the Titanic, man. It can't turn fast. We ain't a speedboat, right? So okay, that's what happened last time, right? Then, okay, 2012, right now we got the build off. So we got the takeoff, the takeoff period of time. And then all of a sudden, boom, here's 2020, a little bit of a tiny little dip in 2020, not major, but tiny little dip. And then the extreme acceleration between 2020 and May of 2022. That was the peak. That was that, again, that delusion, that new paradigm, that straight craziness. Then, okay, here we have that correction, that brief correction, which took us into what? March of 2023. And then, so that was that, kind of the bottom. It's like, okay, shit, felt like it was crashing, but then, bottomed out and it starts to return, that normalization, just like in the graph I showed you. And then boom, right? Here's where we're at. So look at, this is where we are at right now. Well, the chart doesn't take me into, we don't have 2024 data yet, right, on the Federal Reserve chart. So that this goes back through, to the end of December of 2023. So just look at that correlation to the stage of the bubble chart, right? So this is a diagram of the stage of the bubble. This is the reality of what we're seeing. Here's what we saw in 2000 and during the great financial crisis. Here's where we're at today, right? So, okay. I mean, that's, whatever. Yeah. I'm like, I look at that. I'm like, okay, if history repeats itself, okay, like, it connects some dots for me. Okay. So this next chart, this is the one that blows my mind more than anything, right? So when we look at this, I want you to look at the red line here on this chart. If you're watching this on YouTube, this red line is consumer loans. So this is the, consumer debt, and this is a combination of credit cards, mortgage, auto loans, you name it, any kind of revolving, debt that the consumers has. Okay, the blue line is personal savings rate. So this goes all the way back to, on this chart here, back to about 2000. Right. Now, unfortunately, we don't have much data beyond 2000. Even if I go back and scroll this chart, you can go back to the Federal Reserve's website and go pull up these charts yourself. But they didn't start tracking this data until late 1990s. So, this is just kind of what we got here. But if we start looking at this here, again, now we're able to see the correlation of consumer debt to savings rate. And now you can sit there and see, okay, this is, when shit was getting really tough during the great financial crisis, we saw debt spike up quite a bit. And since then, it's like, okay, like debt was, for the longest period of time, savings was, for what, the first, 4 years of this graph, we got savings rate above debt. Then we start to see debt go above that. Then around 2010, if you're visualizing this on a chart, if you're listening to this, okay, the debt graph line is about, I don't know, inch or two higher than the, savings. Then all of a sudden, okay, so what is this big spike here in the blue line on, sorry, these graphs are kind of funky on how they navigate. So this big spike here in about 2020 on savings was because of all the COVID stimulus, right? But then from there, look at where we're at today. Now this started and you can see at the point that it started there in about, late 2021, where all of a sudden debt starts to skyrocket and savings starts to evaporate. Now, if you look at this, does bring us up through today. Yeah, right. Like this is a up-to-date graph. So when you look at this, like if you look at, I mean, this now looks like, for anybody that you can't see this, like envision like a C, right, where it's just like it's just fucking widening and widening and widening and getting wider and wider and wider. So this is what's going on right now with debt evaporation and credit acceleration, going on. So when we talk about, okay, people feeling the pressure and breaking because of this inflation, this is the U.S. consumer today. And again, I want to remind you, who is buying and selling real estate? It gets to a point where people can't afford life. Yeah, right. Okay, if they got to make a decision on putting food on the table for their family or paying their mortgage payment or having to dump their house and whatever, like what do you think that decision is going to be? Right. So this just gives us an idea of what's going on with the overall consumer. Okay, so then the next chart here, this shows pending home sales. So if we look at this, pending home sales, this goes back to 2001, so we can see all the different cycles, the ups and downs that we've had with pending home sales. But if what I want to fast forward to is right now is over to what we're seeing right now today. So pending home sales, yeah, we had a tiny little uptick, in like December, going into the very, very beginning of this new year, a tiny uptick in pendings. And that could have been because interest rates got a little bit lower. But then now we're in the big acceleration again. And I made a video, not too long ago about interest rates and why I'm not one of these that believes that interest rates, I know there's a lot of predictions out there, but I think the probability is just as high that interest rates could go to 8 to 9% or 10% as they are going to go down to 5% with what's going on with the 10-year yield, how mortgage interest rates are set, with mortgage-backed security, purchase demand. Look, when we start seeing the consumer in such a tough spot, right? Okay, like the biggest competitor to mortgage-backed securities is the 10-year yield. Now, is that 10-year yield and with the yield curve being inverted at the way that in the level that it is, okay, the probability of that going up and up and up is very high, right? So then, okay, more people are going to park money in the 10-year yield as that rate goes up and the yield curve uninverts, and it's going to lower demand for mortgage-backed security purchases. But regardless, with a shaky economy, with inflation, like smart money is paying attention to what the chart that I just showed you, what's going on with consumers, what's going on with, consumer debt, whatever. It's like, okay, does it make money for me to keep buying up mortgage-backed securities, knowing that there's going to start to become a lot, a higher and higher increase of defaults? That becomes much more of a risky investment. Right. So, again, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because I've created a lot of podcasts on interest rates and, my theories there behind that. But again, I would argue that the probability is equally, if not higher, that interest rates go up versus come down, with that. But regardless, even though interest rates have got some relief, we're still seeing pending home sales now on the decline. So not getting better, but getting worse. Then when we look at mortgage applications, right? So here's purchase index applications. So the orange line here is signifying just what mortgage rate 30-year fixed rates are. This down here shows, current to what is going on with actual mortgage purchase applications. As you can see here, mortgage purchase applications are also on the decline right now. And we're at what, 20, 30-year lows with mortgage purchase applications, going on. So those are great. Why do I pay attention to mortgage purchase applications? Because that's a great lead indicator for what the next 3, 4, 5 months is going to look like. So, and there's a lot of other reasons, but those are kind of some of the core things, as to, and there's a lot of things I pay attention to, KPIs that I pay attention to see where this market is going, but the thing that I follow the most is what is going on with the consumer, right? Because again, when you got 140 single family or 140 units, 140 single family units or whatever throughout the United States, again, 1 million of those are roughly institutional owned. So the vast majority of homes are being bought and sold by the regular consumer, regular people like you and I. So it makes sense to then watch what's going on with the regular consumer, have conversations with the regular consumer in your market, in your area, see how they're doing, how their families are doing, see how they're handling all this inflation, paying attention to what's going on with the consumer. And the consumer is just getting wrecked and more wrecked and more wrecked and more wrecked. And I can't help but think that a lot of this is intentional. Right. But I'm not going to put my tinfoil hat on for this podcast, that could be reserved for another time. All right. So then from there, as we're going through this, so now let's talk about, so those are, the reasons as to, and again, as I said a moment ago, you guys, I don't have a timeline on this. As you saw from, the one graph that I showed you of the actual, not just the stages of the bubble chart, but when we actually went through the graph that outlined home prices adjusted for inflation on the Federal Reserve's chart. So that's not just some, bullshit chart I put together. And that's the data on the Federal Reserve's website, going through what took place, from what did that go back to, that was 1987, through current, that chart that we went through with the housing market, right. So you can see, the correlation of that versus the stages of the bubble chart, and whatnot there. But now let's navigate into, okay, okay, all that's great. Let's just say, okay, if the market, well, no, what I was going to say back there a moment ago is, remember the peak last time during the last market correction or crash, the peak was March of 2006. And then the bottom was February of 2012, right? So again, get this out of your mind that, real estate, so many people, and the reality is most in this industry anymore haven't been in it long enough to have experienced anything but this crazy seller's market that, we're just kind of unwinding out of, right? So they don't know any different. All they can correlate it to is the stock market, where these, just like overnight shit can crash, or a week shit can crash. Real estate is a slow process. So from peak to valley, or peak to trough, whatever terminology that one use, high to low, right? That was a 6-year span. Right. So these things take a while. Yeah. Right. Okay. So then from there, like, what do you do to go out there and position and prepare for it? All right. So first I want to go through the best piece of advice I ever got given to me by my first mentor in this real estate space. Now this was a dude that was doing this, 25 plus years, absolute badass, still is a badass, but this is a dude that his business continued to grow and scale year after year, for 25 years. This is when I first got into real estate. So this was, dude's been doing this for, 4 decades now. And piece of advice that he gave me when I first got in this industry, he was like, Josh, man, if you want to get damn good and ensure that your business continues to grow and scale, regardless of the economy, regardless of the real estate market, he's like, you get damn good at acquiring and servicing traditional buyers and sellers. Then he's like, then you get damn good at acquiring and servicing investor clients. Then you get damn good at acquiring and servicing at distressed properties. So your pre-foreclosures, your REOs. And then he's like, okay, it doesn't matter what's going on with the economy, what's going on with the real estate market. One of those is always strong. So no matter what is going on, you just know how to adapt, shift, and change accordingly to one of those. And your business will there's always going to be demand in one of those areas, right? Regardless of the market, regardless of the economy. But then you follow that up with, then you have to have the ability to be able to read the markets, to be able to pinpoint and identify where the market is going. So you're not skating to where the puck is, but you're skating to where it's going. Right. So like, what am I doing to prep for right now? I'm focusing on the vast majority of my time is focusing on where the biggest opportunities are at right now. So my business, because, we're established, we've been doing business a long time. So yes, we're still doing our all online funnel, still doing a shit ton of social media, paid, organic, still doing YouTube, still hammering our past client sphere of influence, but about half of our time is focused on now immediate business, and I'm not going to go through. I recently recorded a podcast of the 7 best now business strategies, for you right now here in 2024. If you need now business, now money, but okay, we're also focusing on those things. The reality of it is, look, you guys, if you look at about 3 years ago, 2 years up to middle of 2022, I was going out there and selling. When I say me and my team, right? 2+ homes daily, 600-700 home sales a year, with primarily 3 sources. And then this market shifts, this market changes. A lot of those, we're still doing all but one of those. One of them just dried up completely because of the market. The other things the other 2 things we're still doing, but they're yielding about 50% lesser results than they were yielding at, during those times. But that makes sense because you got about 50 to 60% of regular people that were normally or typically willing to and able to buy and sell in the real estate market that are omitted from the marketplace because of all this crazy fucking cost of inflation and cost of real estate. Right. We're at the most unaffordable time to be alive as a U.S. citizen, the most unaffordable real estate market to ever exist in U.S. recorded history. So yeah, it eliminates about 50 to 60%, depending on your market, your price point, of typical people that used to be able to participate that can't participate now. So it makes sense that those things are down. So in order to continue our business to grow, scale, and thrive, we can no longer do 3 things. We're having to do like 12 things now today. To make up for that deal flow and go out there and because I refuse to have my business retract. Now it may end up retracting, but I'm going to do everything in my damn power to go out there and ensure it continues to grow, scale, and thrive. Right. But in addition to that, so that's where, okay, when I'm saying this, right, like most of my time, 99% of my time is focused on where the now opportunities are at. Then I'm focusing 1% of my time on where I think this stuff is heading. Right. So we're starting to, and have been for a little bit of time now, building up our short sale division and going after pre-foreclosures. Right. We're starting to go out there and put in all our applications and getting prepped and getting positioned for, the banks with REO. And look, with REO, with it being an election year, and I haven't read the article yet. So I don't want to, say what's in it yet, because I haven't had a time to do a deep dive into it. But I just read that, okay, like VA and some of these companies or some of these different, VA and I think FHA, put a hold on foreclosures, and that could be just, because again, election year, who knows what it could be, for whatever it could be, but that's okay. All I'm doing is I'm positioning myself for if and when shit hits the fan, I'm there. right? But the important thing I want you to understand there is 99% of my time essentially is focused on where are the now opportunities. But then, yeah, I take 1% of my time and I'm prepping and getting things in place and position myself and putting, time, energy, money into what possibly could come. Right. Then from there, with this current market and what we're stepping into, because look, we've already stepped into the winter. Now the winter is just going to get deeper. So we're already into winter. Like if you look at businesses seasons, right? You got your good seasons, you got your bad seasons. Or if you want to look at this times of peace, times of war, we just came out of a time of peace. 2012 through 2022, longest bull market recorded history, longest economic expansion recorded history, longest real estate expansion recorded history. That was a time of peace. It was good, man. You could kind of show up, kind of work, kind of be consistent. You could just wing it. You could be an amateur. You could not treat your business as a business and go out there and make multiple six figures. Like shit was good. It's great. Warren Buffett says when the tide goes out, you see you skinny dipping. A lot of mofos were caught skinny dipping. Right now it's a time of war. Right. So, or you can look at this as, seasons. You got your summer seasons, your spring seasons, your fall season. Like we're in winter, right. But I believe that we're in the beginning stages of winter, but things that we've had to do to prep for this market and things that we got to do continue going forward because this shit's going to get worse. And I don't necessarily know in all exact ways of how this maps out and works itself out. But I know that it's going, and when I say I know, I'm extremely confident. I believe that the probability is extremely high that shit's going to get a hell of a lot worse before it gets better, right? So those that then, but here we're talking about how to grow, scale, thrive, regardless of the economy. So I'm not saying this shit to scare you because opportunities out there regardless, right? Again, as I said, when I started this podcast off, you and you alone dictate your business, not the economy, not the real estate market, you and your actions. If your market is down, it has nothing to do with interest rates or transaction volume. That's just you allowing yourself to be a victim, right? You can't do that. You got to take responsibility. It's because your lack of actions, lack of ability to pivot, right? And if you don't know the actions and pivots to take, again, go schedule. I'm here for you. www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. Schedule that 1 hour long free Zoom coaching call with me personally. Promise you I'll get you dialed in. I got your back. I'll make sure you know exactly what to do based on your situation, your market, your goals, exactly what you need to do to go out there and crush it. So you got no excuse, right? So again, like if you're not booking this and you're struggling, you got no excuse. Just keep struggling and keep complaining and or just book it, man. I'm here. I'm here to help you. I'm not going to, I don't know why more of you don't book it. Book these and take advantage of these. There's zero pressure, 100% free. But anyway, enough of that. All right. So right now we got to be great operators. No longer winging it is no longer working. You've got to treat your business as a business, be a great operator, what I call a true professional. So true professional means being a great operator, treating your business as a business. What does that mean? Okay, a couple things, right? You obsess over strategy. You make sure that you've got the right strategy in place for the right market, for the right economy, and you're adapting your strategy accordingly. Great operators obsess over strategy, client acquisition strategy. What does that mean? That means okay, who am I targeting and how am I targeting that has the highest probability of needing my services based on this current market climate? Okay, then from there, you're tracking your numbers, right? You got your processes, your systems dialed in. And as you continue to grow and scale, you plug in the right people at the right times, and those are kind of the foundations of being a great operator overall. Then from there, you got to make sure that you are mastering client acquisition strategy. So there's 3 parts of this, right? You got strategy itself, then we got process, then we got skill set. So strategy, just a repeat and a reminder, strategy is, okay, who am I targeting that has the highest probability of needing my services in this market? So look, what does that mean directly? Who needs to sell, who needs to buy, or has the highest probability of needing to buy, needing to sell, needing my services in this market. And it's not enough to just identify them. Okay, then from there, what is the most effective overall strategy and method and medium to go out there and target those people to maximize conversions on getting those people? Then, so that number one, we got to target the right people within the right ways to go out there and get those customers. Then from there, when I talk about client acquisition process, this means, okay, we got to identify how long and how frequent we must follow up to maximize conversions for that strategy, right? Because in this market right now, man, all that low-hanging fruit is dried up. Again, we're in the tightest real estate market that we've ever seen in recorded history when it comes from number of transactions closing, number of listings being on the market, number of transactions closing versus number of active realtors versus human population here in the United States. We've never seen anything like this. You haven't, I haven't, none of us have seen this. Yeah, right. So we keep all that low hanging fruit's dried up. Look, again, you can't wing it. You got to make sure that you are maximizing and optimizing your overall conversions. And we got to take this stuff serious. This is serious business. Okay, so then the last piece then there is skill set. You guys, so skill set is just how good am I at doing those things, right? How good am I at having those effective conversations, pre-framing conversations, having those conversations, navigating objections, setting the appointment, conducting the appointment, essentially from lead gen, lead follow-up to appointment set. Like, how good am I at acquiring, getting that from getting that lead, all the way through acquiring that client. That's what I'm talking about, skill set. Right? Your ability to go out there and have highly effective conversations and influence the behavior and decisions to get them to take action and choose you to be their real estate professional. So all three of those things must be dialed in, right? So as I've mentioned before, though, you got to pay attention and you got to be willing to go out there and adapt, shift accordingly, because there is no such thing as a good market or a bad market. I want you to get that shit out of your head. No such thing as a good market, no such thing as a bad market. The real estate market is always good for somebody. It's your job as a real estate professional to identify whom the market is good for, pivot, shift, adapt accordingly. And if you do so, your business will always continue to grow, because people are always buying real estate, always selling real estate. The real estate itself is going to always be changing hands. Your job is to identify who's buying it, who's selling it, why are they buying it, why are they selling it, where are they coming from, where are they going. And again, if you know that game and you play that game in the right way, you're going to continue to grow, scale, and thrive. All right, so I'm going to end this session with this. So hopefully this is helpful for you guys. And again, look, if you need help getting your own unique strategy dialed in for your real estate business, I highly encourage you to schedule a 100% free Zoom coaching call with me personally. What we're going to talk about on this hour-long free Zoom coaching call is where your business is currently at, what your 12-month goals are, what your long-term goals are, what your current situation is, what you are currently doing, what your current obstacles are. Then from there, those are all the pieces that I need to put together the best strategy for you in your unique situation, because everybody's situation is nuanced. So many people, I was just actually doing one of these free coaching calls earlier today. And, I told the person I was talking to, I'm like, look, go on YouTube, you go on these podcasts, and people are always like, oh, this is the best strategy. This is the best. This is the best. This is the best. I'm like, look, it's so nuanced, man. Look, whether you're full-time, part-time, what your personal situation is, what your other commitments are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you enjoy doing, what your overall goals are, what you're looking at building, right? Like, we need all those pieces to be able to put together, because there's no best strategy. It's about what is the best strategy for you to get from where you're at to where you want to go in the quickest, most effective, efficient, profitable time. So doing these hour-long Zoom calls, look, the podcast is great, but I'm doing the podcast. I'm kind of having to speak in generalizations here. This is going to allow us to do this, dial this in for you, specifically to you, your unique situation, your unique business. And I promise you, I will make sure that before you leave this free Zoom coaching call, you'll know exactly what you must do to get from where you're at to where you want to go in the quickest, most effective, efficient, profitable manner possible. Look, it doesn't matter if you're a brand new agent, individual agent, seasoned agent, team leader, broker owner. I don't care if you're brand new, just getting started, or you've got 200 agents in your brokerage and want to scale up to 1,000. I got your back. I will get you dialed in. We'll get you rocking and rolling. But if you don't schedule a call, I can't help. All right. So if you're struggling, or look, hey, man, maybe you just want a different perspective. Maybe you're doing good, but hey, man, I have a different perspective that can get you there faster. Got nothing to lose, but everything to gain. So if it's something you want to schedule, go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. Now, as soon as you schedule this, there's going to be a really important video. It's a quick video, but it's an important video for you to watch. That's just going to allow you to be most prepared for a call, so we can get the maximize, because we only have an hour, which is enough time to get you dialed in, but we only have an hour. So I want to make sure that we get you as much done and make sure it's as powerful as possible in that hour time. So make sure you watch that video so you're prepped and ready to rock and roll for the call. All right, guys, again, I hope that this was helpful. Keep crushing it, keep kicking ass, and I will see you next time. Peace.